New at 9, a new survey reveals widespread anxiety among America's workers as multiple states attempt to begin that slow process of reopening the economy. Fishbowl, it's a popular workplace app, surveyed nearly 20,000 people across the country, and 80% said they would not feel safe going back to work if their state reopened right now. So what do you do if you still feel unsafe about this? Joining us right now to help answer some of your questions about worker safety and protections is our good friend and legal analyst, Whitney Boan. Great to see you, Whitney.
Hey, Amy. Good to see you. Good morning. I'm good. How are you?
Very good, thanks. All right, so this is a tough topic for a lot of people, right? Because we know that as these restaurants and these retail stores open today, there are folks who are going back to work today and not feeling comfortable about it. What should you say to your manager or your boss?
Well, I mean, you need to communicate. This is a time where you need to be expressing how you feel, because you shouldn't make assumptions about what your employer may feel about from their perspective in terms of whether or not they're going to force you to come to work or not. But you also have some limited options in terms of if your employer does make you go to work, unless you have some ADA or American Disabilities Act qualifying pre-existing sort of medical diagnosis, or you're part of a vulnerable set of individuals that's been identified by the CDC and the federal government, you probably are going to have to go, or you are going to have to take something like unpaid leave. But again, this is something where it starts with communication. And if you're confused about what you should be doing or not doing after you've spoken with your employer or your manager, it's always a good idea to maybe talk to a lawyer too.
Whitney, what about making sort of a list of requests to your employer? Like, look, if you sit in a tight cubicle area, hey, I really would like to be spread apart, or are there certain expectations you can have about the cleanliness of your workspace? Are those things you should talk about too?
Absolutely. And OSHA is going to be setting out further guidelines in terms of what they're expecting employers to do to comply with creating a safe workplace in this global pandemic situation. So definitely, I mean, there's an expectation that you shouldn't have to touch other individuals, or that there shouldn't be opportunities for you to wash your hands, or that there shouldn't be accommodations made for things like gloves and face masks and things of that nature. Definitely safe distances in the workplace. So those are conversations you should have too. If you have any questions about that too, there's a lot of information about that on the internet, even in terms of what OSHA is already requiring, what they're going to continue to require. And those are conversations that we all need to be having so that you can feel more safe if your employer is willing to work with you about it, or if not, maybe you have some recourses in terms of reporting your employer so that those sort of situations can be enforced and make it safer for everybody.
Well, and Whitney, too, there has been some talk about, potential legislation to protect business owners and managers from the liability of, people saying, well, I came to work and I ended up getting the virus while I was here. Is that something you anticipate will be happening in the months ahead?
Well, I think it's probably safe to say from a lawyer's perspective, I think there's going to be a lot of litigation all over the place about this in terms of people who are claiming that they were forced to come to work and that they contracted the virus while they were at work, and employers on the other side who are preparing themselves to fight against that. As far as legislation goes, that obviously is going to maybe define some of the parameters. It's a little difficult in situations where we're talking about a virus, because it's a little harder to isolate the source of the virus, and then is it an intervening variable legally that the employer would then be responsible for. But certainly I would expect some situations where if employers are flagrantly exposing people to situations where they know they're exposing someone to the virus, that they could be held liable, even under future legislation.
All right. Wow, what a mess. Whitney, we're all keeping a very close eye on it. We love you and your expertise. Thank you so much.
You.
Great to see you.
Good to see you, Amy.
Take care, Whitney.
Take care. Bye.
All right. We do have